I'm Gwen Preston of Resource Maven. We're here at the Metals Investor Forum in Vancouver in early November, and I'm joined by George Salamis of Integra Resources. Thanks for coming back to the conference.
Thank you, Gwen. Thank you.
So Integra, done a huge amount in a year. You sort of went through that in your talk just now. A lot accomplished, and I think we're all starting to get somewhat familiar with the most obvious opportunity at the DeLamar project, which is this large, lower grade, but at surface resource that you guys look to me to be growing quite significantly with a fair bit of ease. And that's great. You're going to wrap some economics around that in the first half of next year. So that's progressing in a great way. But what I wanted to talk about today was you've had some consultants come to site to really do a brain trust on the geology here and the opportunity. And that has already generated one or two new discoveries and has sort of recast your playbook a little bit on how you're approaching that. And I know you're even sort of staking new claims many kilometers away. So let's talk a little bit about how that has all developed.
Yeah, sure. And that came as a result of failure. I mean, we learn, right, by failing.
Right.
And so we had a preconceived notion when we started off the drill program on where the gold and silver was, how it was formed, where it was placed, etc. And our hit rate wasn't so good in the very beginning. And that's just the way it goes. This is exploration. And so as a result of that, we decided to get the big guns out. And I like to call it kind of the holy trinity of epithermal geology. So it was Dick Silito, well known if you've gone through the School of Geology before. You know his name is all over the textbooks and in all these different types of deposits, epithermal deposits, porphyry deposits. And then a fellow by the name of Jeff Hedenquist, who, again,
He's almost as famous, I would say.
Almost as famous for different reasons. And funny enough, our VPX, Max Baker, who you met on site, he's an understudy of those two, right? Just a Dr. Max Baker. So he's it. So we had the holy trinity out on site during the summer months, which was kind of cool. Another thing that we did purposefully was we staged their visits apart so as not to influence each other on a view and an outcome. And also so that they wouldn't get into fights, as geologists often do.
Yeah.
Even though they're agreeing with each other, they might be fighting, right?
Over the smallest detail, and then they get distracted about that.
The cool thing was, amongst the three of them, they all came to the same conclusion, which was a new way of viewing the gold and silver at DeLamar, which is, without going into a lot of technical detail, it's related to this boiling zone. And you see that in epithermal deposits. Gold and silver, or the metals basically coming out of solution and depositing themselves in a rock, but at a certain paleo horizon.
That has to do with pressure and temperature.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so it was the recognition of that and where that is relative to the then paleo surface, which is, you have to go back in time, in our case, 15 million years to when these deposits were created, and think about Yellowstone, for example, right now with the geysers, because those are essentially the roots or the building blocks to the types of deposits that we're into.
Right.
And so you see these champagne pools and these hot springs coming out of the ground, and that's essentially how these deposits are formed.
Right.
So knowing where that surface was at the time of formation, and essentially going down another 200 meters, which is where we believe that boiling zone starts, is really important. So that it's that sweet spot of 200 meters below the paleo surface. Now, the key is recognizing where that paleo surface is on your property, in our case.
Right.
So we're looking for evidence of things like sinters, for example, or evidence of you're right at the surface of formation. So you need to be looking another 200 meters below that. And that's essentially what got us into Henrietta. Sullivan Gulch fits exactly within that sweet spot as well. So yeah, it's really cool stuff.
So then how many would you say that your number of targets or your number of sort of areas of excitement, has that increased as a result of this? Do you think there's more areas where you think there's potential? And is that for both the disseminated style and the high grade, or is it one versus the other? How does that all fit?
Typically they go hand in hand, the disseminated mineralization versus the high grade. In some epithermals they're separated, in others they're very close to each other. To answer your first question, what it's done for us, it's literally pushed us in a direction of more staking. So we've increased our land package by about 50% as a result of this new thinking. And the incredible thing about being out there with both of these, or the Holy Trinity, if you will, was recognizing this, going out into the field, seeing it in these areas that are 5 and 7 kilometers away from DeLamar, and seeing these sinters and seeing these epithermal veins, taking samples that run 1 gram, 2 grams gold, 100, 200 grams silver, on something that's never been drilled.
Right.
And then just staking it.
And it's available for staking. So
Absolutely.
that also sort of shows that people just completely discounted this project, this area, even though it has this really impressive history of both high grade and low grade production. The area got totally discounted, and this stuff's just available to pick up.
Yes.
Right.
Indeed. Yeah, it's incredible.
It
in
is,
the U.S.,
right,
close to a highway with all that infrastructure.
Yeah,
It's
amazing to think of.
Yes.
So now you have more to do, not that you didn't have a lot already. So now the balance is between this ongoing work to grow the defined resource and then to wrap a mine plan around that to help the market understand what that is and why Kinross maybe gave up a pretty good opportunity for its own reasons, while also trying to put some attention into all of these exploration ideas.
That's right. Yeah, it's always a balance, right? How
Always.
Expanding an existing resource, putting economics on it. Looking at what it would look like as a development scenario, balanced against doing those exploration meters out at a distance, finding that new discovery that's really going to light things up, turning 3.5 million ounces into 6 or whatever that number could be, right?
Yeah.
And so it's always a balance for us.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting, and
Sure is.
I'm glad you guys had a bit of failure that forced you to rethink it. I mean, it's not really failure. You have to go into a project with an idea, and if the idea doesn't work, what matters is coming up with a new one.
It's the only way we learn.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, well, I look forward to the news for the rest of the year.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks.